With COVID-19 cases up across Metro Atlanta and the country, updated COVID vaccines are now available at your local pharmacy. But it could come with some serious sticker shock for Georgians who don't have health insurance. Atlanta News First, Blake Devine, live outside of a CVS in Old Fourth Ward tonight. And Blake, the CDC has ended its program providing free shots for those without insurance.
Chelsea, the CDC's Bridge Access Program, which offered free COVID vaccines to uninsured Georgians, concluded when September started, meaning that many people without insurance here in Georgia are soon starting to realize that COVID vaccines aren't free at their local pharmacies and may cost up to $200.
Up until now, the federal government had a program in place to help cover the cost of COVID vaccines for uninsured folks or people whose insurance didn't cover the full cost. That program has now ended.
Rebecca Grapevine is a public health expert who says hundreds of thousands of people may not have access to the updated COVID vaccine. With around 1 million uninsured adults under the age of 65, Georgia has one of the nation's highest uninsured rates.
The state government is stepping in to buy some COVID vaccines for uninsured folks that they could get for free, but they're probably only going to purchase around 38,000 of those right now.
According to CVS, the shots could cost around $202 for uninsured patients paying out of pocket. We talked to some longtime locals in Atlanta who say that isn't affordable.
Who can actually afford that in this climate? Without insurance, I don't see how it's possible, especially for people living at or under the poverty line.
I think they won't do it. I think that's unfair. COVID is serious still. It needs, people need to be vaccinated.
Stephanie Sherman is a Medicare patient who just got her COVID shot here at this CVS. With the CDC's free vaccine program concluded, she's concerned this could contribute to more people catching COVID.
Already we've seen the rise at the end of the summer, and we haven't even entered into the season where they think it's, typically increases. So I think definitely we'll see a rise.
Health experts say these new vaccines will be free for those with Medicare, along with any kid under the age of 18. Although uninsured adults will be weighing whether they can afford it.
The only other option is, again, to try through the County Board of Health or find a charity clinic near you that might be able to help out.
Keep in mind, around 2.4% of all deaths in Georgia are caused by COVID. That's about 10 to 20 deaths per week on average, a lot lower than what we saw during the pandemic in 2020 or 2021, but still a significant number. For now, reporting live in Old Fourth Ward, Blake Devine, Atlanta News First.
DeKalb Public Health is holding drive-through vaccinations Friday at the North DeKalb Health Center in Chamblee. They're taking seniors all day and people with special needs from 9 a.m. until 1. Then children and adults will be able to get their shots from 3 until 6:30. No pre-registration is required. Dolan